Most people look at a chart of average net worth by age and immediately judge themselves. They think, I'm behind. They feel shame, frustration, even panic. They start believing the illusion that wealth is a race and they're already losing. But the truth is, those numbers mean nothing without context. Net worth is not a competition. It's a measurement of consciousness. What you have today doesn't define what you're capable of tomorrow. Your net worth only reveals one thing: how you've thought, believed, and behaved up until this moment. It's not destiny, it's a reflection. A reflection that can be changed the moment you change your internal dialogue about money, success, and risk. The average person thinks numbers define their value. They attach identity to the size of a bank account, a portfolio, or a paycheck. But wealth isn't a number. Wealth is awareness. It's emotional control. It's the ability to direct your energy without being seduced by fear or guilt. The people who grow their net worth exponentially are not the ones who chase more. They're the ones who think differently about what they already have. Reality check: most people's financial lives are dictated by emotional patterns, not logic. The average 30-year-old, 40-year-old, or even 50-year-old doesn't struggle because of lack of opportunity. They struggle because of internal resistance. They save when they should invest, they consume when they should delay, and they fear losing more than they believe in winning. Every financial mistake starts as a psychological one. So when you look at average net worth by age, don't just see data, see behavior, see the invisible stories that created those numbers. Behind every low average is fear, comfort, and hesitation. Behind every high average is belief, conviction, and persistence. Wealth is not luck. It's emotional alignment with opportunity. You might be 25 with nothing in your savings. You might be 40 and still paying off debt. You might even be 60 wondering if it's too late. It's not. Because wealth is not about when you start. It's about how deeply you commit once you do. The compounding doesn't start with money. It starts with clarity. The moment you stop identifying with average, you step into potential. Most people misinterpret the word average. They think it's a standard, but it's not. It's the middle ground between belief and disbelief, between those who act and those who hesitate. The average person lives in fear, operates in comfort, and rationalizes in action. The successful person lies with risk, operates in awareness, and acts despite fear. That's why the gap exists. Every age group has its illusion. The young believe time is endless. The middle-aged believe it's too late. The older believe the opportunity has passed. But wealth doesn't care about age. It only responds to mindset. The universe rewards expansion, not hesitation. And expansion begins when you stop measuring yourself against others and start designing your own metrics for growth. Ask yourself, what if you stopped trying to catch up and started to compound forward? What if every dollar you earned wasn't proof of how far behind you are, but a seed of how capable you are? The moment you stop reacting to where you are and start creating where you want to be, your entire financial trajectory shifts. Let's be brutally honest. Most people will never escape average because they seek validation instead of transformation. They want the comfort of being like everyone else, even when everyone else is struggling. It's easier to justify mediocrity when you're surrounded by it. But the path to wealth is lonely because it requires detaching from collective excuses. You can't outperform the crowd if you keep thinking like it. The data says the average person at 30 has this much. The average at 40 has that much. But the data doesn't tell you who they were emotionally. It doesn't measure confidence, patience, or risk tolerance, and those are the real assets that determine long-term wealth. Money follows mastery, and mastery begins internally. So let's do a different kind of reality check, not of your balance sheet, but of your beliefs. Do you believe money is scarce or abundant? Do you think risk is dangerous or necessary? Do you treat your financial future as something to protect or something to expand? Because whatever your answers are, your net worth is already showing them to you. The key to breaking the average barrier is emotional growth. You don't need to earn twice as much. You need to think twice as clearly. You don't need another job. You need a different relationship with uncertainty. The wealthy don't have fewer fears. They just refuse to let fear make their financial decisions. They understand that wealth is not accumulated through comfort, but through consistent exposure to controlled risk. The truth is, you can't grow your wealth until you grow your capacity to handle pressure. You can't hold more until you become the kind of person who doesn't collapse under volatility. Your bank account will always mirror your emotional resilience. That's why two people can earn the same income. One ends up broke. The other builds generational wealth. The difference isn't income, it's inner structure. So when you see those charts showing average net worth by age, don't let them define you. Let them challenge you. Let them remind you that you are not here to fit into a statistic. You are here to transcend one. The average is the illusion. Your potential is the reality. From this point forward, stop asking, how do I compare? And start asking, how do I expand? The moment you adopt that question, you shift from limitation to creation. You stop thinking like a spectator of life and start behaving like the architect of your future. You don't need to be extraordinary to escape average. You just need to stop thinking like everyone else. Because wealth isn't what you chase, it's what you become. And the moment you master your inner world, the numbers outside will catch up, faster than you ever imagined. Most people believe that numbers define them. They stare at their net worth, their salary, or their savings account and immediately begin to interpret those digits as evidence of their potential. But the truth is far more revealing and far more empowering. Numbers reflect behavior, not potential. Your financial status today is not a prophecy about what you can achieve tomorrow. It is merely the mathematical result of the behaviors, beliefs, and decisions you've repeated until now. And once you understand that, you gain your greatest power, the power to change. Everything you see in your financial life right now, every number in your account, every debt, every asset is a mirror. It's not there to shame you or to glorify you. It's there to teach you. The numbers tell the truth about your patterns, your fears, and your mindset. They reveal how you've been interacting with risk, how you've been interpreting opportunity, and how much emotional control you have over your decisions. The problem isn't the number. It's the meaning you attach to it. When you look at your net worth and see lack, what you're really seeing is hesitation. You're seeing the moments you didn't act, the chances you didn't take, the fear that stopped you from expanding. When you see debt, you're not seeing failure. You're seeing the story of emotional attachment to consumption, to comfort, to instant gratification. And when you see growth, you're not just seeing success, you're seeing consistency, belief, and the courage to stay in the game long enough for the compounding to work. Numbers, in that sense, are emotional fingerprints. They trace the invisible psychology that has shaped your life. The reason most people stay stuck financially isn't because of a lack of opportunity. It's because they keep trying to change the result without changing the behavior that caused it. They chase new strategies, new investments, new income sources, but they bring the same mindset to each one. It's like upgrading the car, but refusing to learn how to drive differently. They wonder why the outcome doesn't change, but the truth is simple: the market, the system, the economy, they all respond to your behavior, not your wishes. Behavior is not just about what you do, it's about how you think before you do it. It's driven by emotion, belief, and identity. If you believe you're not capable of wealth, every action you take will unconsciously confirm that belief. You'll save timidly, invest fearfully, and quit early. On the other hand, if you believe you're meant to create abundance, you'll naturally act with persistence and conviction. That's why two people can be given the same tools, same opportunities, even the same income, and yet one builds wealth while the other stays stuck. The difference isn't access, it's behavior. Let's be honest, financial growth is brutally honest. It doesn't care about your intentions, your excuses, or your story. It only measures your consistency and your emotional control. You can't outsmart your own patterns. Every financial decision you make is an extension of your mindset. If you're impatient, it will show. If you're fearful, it will show. If you're undisciplined, it will show. Money amplifies who you are. It doesn't change you, it exposes you. That's why the majority of lottery winners lose everything within years. The sudden increase in numbers didn't increase their emotional capacity to manage it. Their behavior stayed the same, and so did their result, only now on a larger scale. Wealth doesn't belong to the intelligent, it belongs to the emotionally mature. Because wealth requires consistency, and consistency requires control. Every time you act impulsively with money, you're proving that you're still reacting emotionally instead of strategically. Every time you delay a smart decision because of fear, you're showing that your behavior still serves your comfort, not your future. And as long as your behavior stays tied to emotion, your numbers will stay tied to limitation. If you want to change your financial trajectory, stop staring at the numbers and start studying the behavior that created them. Ask yourself questions that cut deep. Why do I feel uncomfortable holding cash for too long? Why do I feel the urge to spend when I'm stressed? Why do I panic when my investments fluctuate? Why do I avoid looking at my account when I know I should? Because the answers to those questions are far more valuable than any financial advice you'll ever receive. They reveal the programming that's been running your financial life unconsciously. And until you confront that programming, no amount of knowledge will help you. You can read every book on investing, follow every expert, and still end up repeating the same mistakes. Because knowledge doesn't change behavior, awareness does. The irony is that the average person measures progress by numbers, when progress actually begins before the numbers change. It begins the moment you stop reacting emotionally and start acting intentionally. It begins the moment you stop saying, "Can't afford this," and start asking, "How can I create this?" It begins when you shift from scarcity to strategy. The numbers will always lag behind your mindset because results are the last thing to change in the chain of transformation. Behavior changes first, then consistency, then momentum, and finally, the numbers reflect the shift. That's why patience is so powerful in wealth creation. When you understand that numbers are delayed reflections of behavior, you stop obsessing over short-term results. You realize that temporary losses don't mean failure, they mean feedback. Every fluctuation in your financial life becomes information about your emotional state, not a reason to panic. The market isn't attacking you, it's testing your ability to stay grounded. Your account isn't disappointing you, it's teaching you how to manage attachment. Every number is a teacher if you're willing to listen. Think about it. When a trader blows up their account, it's rarely because the market betrayed them. It's because they betrayed their own rules. They acted emotionally in a system that rewards discipline. The loss wasn't random, it was behavioral, and that principle applies everywhere. The spender who can't save, The investor who can't hold, the earner who can't grow, all are trapped in behavioral loops that override logic. The way out isn't more information, it's more self-awareness. Numbers are neutral. They don't judge you. They don't label you. They just respond. They respond to your spending, your saving, your patience, your greed, your fear. They mirror everything you express through choice. That's why you can't fake wealth. You can't manipulate numbers long term. Eventually, your behavior will reveal itself in the data. That's not something to be ashamed of. It's something to be empowered by, because it means you're always in control. You can't change the market. You can't control inflation, but you can always control your behavior. And when you do, the numbers have no choice but to adjust. The path to transformation begins with brutal honesty. Look at your numbers without emotion, without guilt, without excuses. Just observe. See them as evidence of how you've been living, not as judgment of who you are. Every imbalance is just a message from your past self saying, this is what you've been prioritizing. And now, with awareness, you can prioritize differently. Once you see that money is a behavioral mirror, you stop blaming external circumstances for internal patterns. You stop saying the system is unfair and start realizing I haven't mastered the system yet. You stop waiting for luck and start building structure. You stop measuring your worth by averages and start building wealth by alignment. That's the mindset of transformation. Behavior doesn't lie. It always tells the truth about what you believe you deserve. If you believe wealth is unattainable, you'll unconsciously sabotage every opportunity to prove yourself right. If you believe it's your natural state, you'll find ways to align with it, because your actions will reflect belief instead of fear. That's why the first step to changing your numbers is not earning more, it's believing differently. You have to become emotionally comfortable with abundance before abundance can find you. Every wealthy individual you admire didn't get there because of luck. They got there because they learned to manage themselves under uncertainty. They understood that emotions are temporary, but discipline is permanent. They practiced consistency until it became identity. They made decisions from belief, not from reaction, and slowly, over time, the numbers followed. You can do the same, but it starts with rejecting the illusion that numbers define your potential. They don't. They define your past behavior, and past behavior can be rewritten through conscious repetition. If you start acting today with clarity, patience, and focus, the numbers will eventually reflect it. That's not motivational talk. That's mathematical reality. Think of compounding not just as a financial law, but as a behavioral one. Every disciplined decision compounds. Every moment you resist emotional impulses compounds. Every time you stick to your plan compounds. The return on emotional discipline is exponential wealth, but you only experience it when you stop measuring yourself by temporary outcomes and start measuring yourself by consistency. Here's the truth. Most people quit before the compounding shows up. They abandon the process because they're addicted to immediate proof. But numbers don't reveal growth instantly. They reveal it over time. Just like the gym doesn't show muscle after one workout, your finances won't reflect behavioral change after one good decision. You have to stay in the process long enough for the reflection to update. So if your numbers don't look the way you want them to right now, that's fine. Don't judge yourself, study yourself. Because those numbers aren't saying you failed. They're saying this is what you've practiced. And if you want a different result, practice differently. Practice patience, practice delayed gratification, practice curiosity instead of panic. The numbers will have no choice but to evolve in response. The beautiful part is, the moment you realize numbers reflect behavior, you stop being a victim of circumstance. You start to see yourself as the creator of every outcome. That's real power, the understanding that nothing is random and nothing is permanent. Every financial reality is fluid because behavior is fluid. Change how you think and you change what you see. Change how you act and you change what you attract. Wealth, then, isn't about luck or privilege. It's about personal alignment. The numbers don't favor anyone. They favor the disciplined. They favor the calm. They favor the one who can control emotion while everyone else reacts to it. When you master that, you don't chase wealth. Wealth becomes a side effect of who you are. So look at your numbers again. But this time, don't see judgment. See feedback. See a mirror of your past self, not a limit to your future self. Every digit is a message. Every balance is a lesson. Every change is an opportunity. You are not defined by your numbers. You define them. And the moment you master your behavior, you master the reality those numbers reflect. Because the truth is simple, your potential is infinite. But your behavior has been finite. The numbers aren't proof of what's possible, they're proof of what's been practiced. And once you change the practice, the reflection must change. Always. Comparison is the silent thief of wealth, clarity, and peace. It's the invisible force that quietly destroys progress long before any financial mistake ever appears. When you measure your net worth, income, or success against someone else's, you are not evaluating reality, you are surrendering to illusion. Comparison is not analysis, it's self-sabotage disguised as motivation. It convinces you that your value is conditional and that fulfillment is somewhere out there, in someone else's account, someone else's life, someone else's timeline. And the moment you buy into that illusion, you lose connection with your own potential. We live in a world obsessed with measurement. Everyone wants to know where they stand, how much they have compared to others, how fast they're growing, how close they are to the so-called average. But the truth is, those comparisons don't guide you, they trap you. Because every comparison creates one of two emotional outcomes: superiority or inadequacy. Both are toxic. The moment you feel superior, you stop growing. The moment you feel inadequate, you stop believing. Either way, comparison cuts off the one thing necessary for wealth: authentic engagement with your own path. When you compare yourself to others, you unconsciously adopt their pace, their fears, their expectations. You start living by their rules instead of your own. You measure your success by someone else's highlight reel, not your inner progress. And yet every human being has a completely different financial psychology, background, and timeline. The fact that someone is ahead or behind means nothing in the long run. It only means their lessons are unfolding in a different order. But your emotional system doesn't know that. It only reacts. It turns admiration into envy, learning into anxiety, curiosity into competition. And the more you feed that energy, the further you drift from your true potential. The irony is that comparison often feels productive. You tell yourself you're analyzing the market, benchmarking, learning from others. But beneath that reasoning lies an emotional truth. You're trying to validate your worth through external symbols. You want to know you're doing okay. You want to feel that your effort means something. But money doesn't respond to comparison, it responds to alignment. The market doesn't care how you stack up against anyone else. It rewards clarity, patience, and execution. When your energy is spent obsessing over where you stand, you have no energy left to move forward. Think about what happens emotionally when you compare. You see someone younger than you, wealthier than you, more successful. Instantly, your brain creates a narrative: I'm behind. You begin to rush decisions, chase opportunities that don't fit you, or take risks out of desperation instead of conviction. Comparison triggers anxiety, and anxiety destroys decision-making. You stop trading your plan and start trading your insecurity. You stop investing in your timeline and start reacting to someone else's progress. And that's how people lose, not because of lack of knowledge, but because of lack of internal stability. Comparison is psychological warfare disguised as inspiration. It convinces you that progress must look like someone else's success story. But no two people ever walk the same path. You don't know their failures, their debts, their emotional sacrifices, or their starting point. You only see their peak moments. The human mind naturally filters for what stands out, and in today's world, what stands out is the illusion of perfection. Social media, financial bragging, lifestyle inflation, all of it paints a distorted image of wealth that doesn't include the psychological cost behind it. You're comparing your full story to someone else's edited snapshot and then punishing yourself for not matching it. True wealth begins where comparison ends. Because only when you detach from others' timelines can you finally see your own clearly. When you stop chasing external validation, you can focus on what actually moves the needle: your habits, your beliefs, your consistency. Those are the only real metrics that matter. You don't need to be wealthier than someone else. You need to be wealthier than your old self. You don't need to reach an average by age. You need to surpass your own emotional limitations. Every dollar you earn through discipline is infinitely more valuable than the one earned through comparison-driven impulse. The truth is, comparison doesn't just distort how you feel about your wealth, it distorts how you build it. It makes you impatient. You want the results faster because someone else already has them. You start skipping foundational steps, ignoring the process that actually creates sustainability. You chase quick wins because you want to catch up. But wealth isn't built in haste, it's built in control. Every rushed decision is a transaction with fear. You trade long-term growth for temporary validation. And that's the cost of comparison. It forces you to spend your emotional capital on proving instead of improving. When you look at someone else's success, the right question isn't, why not me? But what can I learn? The difference between envy and insight is detachment. Envy wants to replicate another person's outcome without understanding their process. Insight studies the mindset behind the outcome and adapts it authentically. That's the difference between copying and evolving. Comparison leads to imitation, and imitation kills creativity. The greatest wealth is created by those who think independently, not those who try to outdo others. Every time you compare, you're telling your subconscious that you're not enough yet. You're feeding scarcity. And scarcity is the enemy of wealth, because wealth is built through expansion, not contraction. You can't expand when your emotional energy is locked in someone else's story. The universe responds to confidence and clarity, not to desperation and doubt. If you want to attract abundance, you must stop broadcasting the frequency of lack. Comparison is lack disguised as motivation. It says, I'll be happy when I reach where they are. But happiness doesn't come from reaching. It comes from realizing that you already have everything you need to grow. Most people never realize how deeply comparison controls them. It's not always loud. It's subtle. It's in the quiet disappointment when you see someone announce a new milestone. It's in the self-criticism when you realize you're not there yet. It's in the justifications you make for why you're different, why your path is slower, why you can't. But the truth is, your pace is not a problem. Your pace is your power if you learn to honor it. Comparison blinds you to that power. It makes you rush seasons that are meant for growth. It makes you abandon processes that are building invisible foundations. Financially speaking, comparison also distorts risk. You start taking risks that don't match your capacity because you're trying to keep up with someone else's strategy. You invest in things you don't understand because others are profiting from them. You overextend because you think success requires aggression. But wealth doesn't reward imitation, it rewards precision. The people who sustain success are not reacting to what others do, they're refining what they do. Every time you chase someone else's opportunity, you're neglecting your own. If you study those who've built real wealth, you'll notice something profound. They rarely compare, they learn, they observe, but they don't emotionally attach. They understand that every person is playing a different game. Some are playing for status, some for security, some for freedom, some for expression. You can't compare your results when your motivations are different. The only fair comparison is with your past self, because that's the only player on the same field as you. The irony is that once you stop comparing, your results accelerate, because all the energy you used to waste on self-doubt and external validation becomes available for focused action. You start making cleaner decisions because they're aligned with your principles, not someone else's expectations. You start to trust your process, and trust creates consistency. Consistency compounds into wealth. The less you look sideways, the faster you move forward. There's also a psychological reason why comparison destroys performance. It pulls you out of the present moment. All meaningful creation happens in the now. But comparison anchors you in the past. I should have been further, or the future. I'll feel worthy when I get there. It disconnects you from the only space where you can take real action, the present. That's why traders, investors, entrepreneurs who constantly compare lose clarity. Their focus shifts from execution to evaluation. They become spectators of their own process. And when you're watching yourself perform, instead of performing, you lose your edge. Wealth isn't about being the best. It's about being aligned. It's about knowing who you are, what you value, and how you want to express it through your resources. Comparison makes you forget that. It convinces you to trade authenticity for acceptance. But true financial power doesn't come from being accepted. It comes from being certain. The more you know yourself, the less you care how you rank. The real tragedy of comparison is that it blinds you to your own abundance. You could be growing, improving, learning. But because someone else is growing faster, you discount your own progress. You rob yourself of gratitude, and gratitude is fuel for growth. Without gratitude, effort feels meaningless. You start to think, what's the point? That's when most people quit, right before the compounding begins. If you ever find yourself trapped in comparison, pause and remember this: no one is ahead or behind. Everyone is simply walking their own timeline. Some people started earlier. Some started with more resources. Some faced challenges you can't see. You're not late. You're learning at the exact pace required for your evolution. The universe doesn't make mistakes. It only mirrors your readiness. So instead of comparing, start observing. Observation is empowering, comparison is draining. Observation says, that's interesting. What can I learn from that behavior, that mindset, that pattern? Comparison says, I'm not enough because I don't have what they have. One opens you up, the other shuts you down. The difference is emotional neutrality. When you can see others' success without judgment or envy, you know you're growing. Because then their success becomes proof of possibility, not proof of your inadequacy. The world will always give you reasons to compare. There will always be someone richer, younger, faster, smarter. But none of that matters. Because wealth isn't a race, it's a reflection. The only score that matters is how much peace, clarity, and control you have over your decisions. You could have less money and still be wealthier emotionally than someone with 10 times your assets. Because real wealth is freedom from comparison, not validation from it. The day you stop measuring your worth by someone else's results is the day you become truly dangerous. Because now your energy is undivided, you no longer need permission to move forward. You're no longer distracted by illusion. You're focused on mastery, and mastery compounds quietly, invisibly, until it becomes undeniable. So let this be your reality check. Comparison will never make you rich. It will make you restless, it will make you reactive, it will make you chase shadows and miss substance. The people who reach extraordinary levels of wealth are not competing with others, they're collaborating with themselves. They use every experience, every mistake. Every season is feedback, not failure. The numbers you see on someone else's chart are not your measurement, they are their mirror. Your task is to keep polishing your own until it reflects the version of you who no longer needs comparison to feel whole. Because the moment you stop needing to be like anyone else, you become someone no one else can be. Most people think money is what compounds. They obsess over interest rates, stock returns, and investment strategies, but they miss the truth that sits quietly beneath all wealth. Mindset compounds faster than money ever can. Every thought, belief, and decision you repeat becomes a multiplier or a limiter on everything you touch. Wealth doesn't start in a portfolio, it starts in perspective. You can give two people the same amount of money, the same market, the same decade, and one will create abundance while the other loses everything. Why? Because money grows at the rate of return, but mindset grows at the rate of awareness. Every dollar you earn or invest is just an echo of your thinking. If your mindset is scarce, your actions will always betray you. You'll hoard when you should expand, panic when you should be patient, and quit when you should adapt. But if your mindset is abundant, you'll see opportunity where others see risk. You'll stay calm when volatility rises. You'll play the long game while the crowd chases the next trend. That's why mindset compounds faster, because every shift in awareness multiplies every future decision. Think about it this way: money follows intelligence, but intelligence follows awareness. The more you understand your patterns, your fear of loss, your craving for certainty, your attachment to validation, the faster you can evolve. Every mental shift you make creates exponential returns because it alters not just what you do, but how you do it. A single change in perspective can permanently transform the way you earn, save, invest, and relate to wealth. You could spend years learning financial tactics, but one deep internal realization can do more for your long-term net worth than any spreadsheet ever could. The world conditions you to chase financial compounding, not mental compounding. You're told to start saving early so time can do the heavy lifting. And while that's true, the same law applies to your thoughts. The earlier you start refining your mindset, the more unstoppable your growth becomes. A powerful mindset multiplies in silence. It rewires how you handle losses, interpret risk, and endure uncertainty. Every year that you stay consistent in thought, you upgrade your capacity to handle complexity, and that's what allows wealth to flow without emotional friction. The tragedy is that most people underestimate how fast the mind compounds. They think mindset is abstract, soft, or secondary, but mindset is the compound interest of identity. Each belief you strengthen reinforces another until eventually your entire mental architecture works in your favor. You begin to trust yourself. You stop reacting to noise. You stop being seduced by fear. You start making decisions that align with who you're becoming, not who you used to be. And that shift, though invisible at first, produces results that the old version you could never even recognize. Money compounds mathematically, mindset compounds energetically, and energy moves faster than math. That's why some people leap from struggle to abundance seemingly overnight. It's not luck, it's alignment. They changed how they thought about themselves, and suddenly every opportunity, relationship, and idea reorganized around that new vibration. The universe is not random, it mirrors your internal frequency. The higher your mindset compounds, the faster your external world has to adjust. Think about the people who keep losing everything no matter how much they make. It's not that they lack intelligence, it's that their internal thermostat hasn't changed. Their mindset is still calibrated to scarcity, to validation, to chaos. So even if they earn millions, they unconsciously find ways to sabotage it. Overspending, over-leveraging, over-proving. The external expansion outruns the internal foundation, and eventually it collapses. Wealth doesn't stay where the mindset hasn't matured to hold it. On the other hand, people with a strong mindset can lose everything and rebuild faster than before. They're not attached to the old form of wealth. They've internalized the process that created it. They understand that money is a byproduct of who they are, not the definition of it. And because their mindset has compounded through failure, they carry the lessons that prevent future loss. Their wealth isn't paper, it's psychological structure. The truth is, your financial life will never exceed your mental life. You can't hold in reality what you reject in thought. If you secretly believe wealth is corrupt, unfair, or unattainable, you'll unconsciously push it away no matter how hard you work. If you believe success requires suffering, you'll always find ways to struggle. These beliefs become invisible limits that cap your compounding potential. They're like mental interest rates that quietly tax every gain you make. But once you expose them, challenge them, and replace them, your returns accelerate. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Here's what most people get wrong. They think mindset is static. They assume their emotional patterns are fixed, their fears permanent, their identity rigid. But mindset is a living organism. It grows, decays, adapts, and regenerates, depending on how much awareness you feed it. Every moment you choose discipline over impulse, belief over fear, gratitude over comparison, you're adding another layer to your internal compound curve. You're building mental equity, and mental equity always outpaces financial equity. Money will compound at 5%, 10%, 15% a year if you're lucky, but one shift in mindset, like moving from fear to faith, can multiply your results by 500%, because it changes the very structure of how you interact with opportunity. You stop hesitating, you start executing. You stop needing permission, you start trusting your intuition. That kind of confidence compounds instantly. Mindset also compounds in the opposite direction. Negative thinking multiplies just as quickly as positive awareness. Every time you reinforce fear, you make it stronger. Every time you believe the market is unfair, you make it harder to win. Every complaint, every excuse, every "I can't" adds interest to your limitations. Before you know it, your mental debt exceeds your financial one. You become emotionally bankrupt long before you ever run out of money. That's why the most valuable investment you'll ever make isn't in a stock, bond, or business. It's in your consciousness. Every new skill, every book, every mentor, every difficult conversation that expands your awareness compounds forever. Because once the mind grows, it never returns to its smaller shape. And the person you become through that process can create wealth infinitely faster than the one who only focuses on numbers. Mindset compounds through exposure to ideas, to discomfort, to growth. Every time you face uncertainty and stay calm, your tolerance expands. Every time you fail and reflect instead of blame, your wisdom expands. Every time you take responsibility for your results, your power expands. That expansion creates a snowball effect. Your perception sharpens. Your emotional recovery accelerates. Your decision-making improves. And suddenly, what once felt impossible becomes normal. That's compounding in its purest form. The compounding of money depends on external conditions, interest rates, market cycles, timing. The compounding of mindset depends only on internal consistency. You don't need perfect conditions to think better. You don't need luck to grow awareness. You only need commitment to keep challenging your own limitations. That's why the people who focus on internal growth eventually outperform everyone else. They're playing a different game. They're not chasing returns. They're upgrading the consciousness that creates them. The danger is that most people quit before the mental compounding takes effect. The same way impatient investors sell too soon, impatient minds give up right before the breakthrough. They say, I've been working on my mindset, but nothing's changing. That's because mindset compounding is invisible at first. You don't see it in your results, you feel it in your reactions. You stay calmer under pressure. You recover faster from mistakes. You stop needing external validation. Those are the first signs that your compound curve has begun. And once it starts, it never stops. Every internal upgrade accelerates the next one. The more you understand yourself, the faster you can correct yourself. The faster you correct yourself, the fewer emotional errors you make. The fewer errors you make, the more consistency you build. And consistency is the real wealth generator. Most people think they need new strategies. What they really need is emotional continuity. Because the market rewards steadiness, not brilliance. Your mindset determines how long you stay in the game. And staying in the game is how compounding works. Every panic-driven exit, every fear-based decision, every emotional reaction resets your progress. But if your mindset is strong, you can endure volatility, financial, emotional, and psychological. You understand that chaos is temporary, but growth is permanent. You don't need to predict the future. You just need to remain unshaken through it. That's what allows your money to keep compounding, because your mind isn't interrupting the process. The greatest proof that mindset compounds faster than money is that once you shift it, the world adjusts rapidly. You start seeing opportunities that were always there, but your fear blinded you to them. You start connecting with people who align with your vision. You start making moves that previously terrified you. The momentum builds not because you're luckier, but because your new mindset filters reality differently. You've changed your internal lens, and reality has no choice but to match it. Every mental breakthrough carries interest. It pays dividends for life. When you learn how to stay calm in uncertainty, that skill pays you every time the market moves. When you learn how to detach from outcomes, that clarity protects your peace through every setback. When you master discipline, that control compounds through every decision. Money will always fluctuate, but those internal assets never depreciate. And here's the paradox. Once your mindset compounds enough, you stop caring about money. Not because it's unimportant, but because you've transcended its control over your emotions. You realize money is just a feedback mechanism, a scoreboard of how well you're managing yourself. When your focus shifts from chasing money to mastering mindset, the money takes care of itself. You stop forcing outcomes and start attracting them. This is why real wealth builders operate with calm intensity. They're not in a hurry, but they're relentless. They understand that mindset is the foundation of exponential growth. They invest time into journaling, reflection, learning, and discipline, not because it looks productive, but because it compounds silently. And one day, that invisible growth manifests as visible wealth. To the outside world, it looks like sudden success. But it wasn't sudden, it was mental compounding catching up to reality. The truth is, anyone can earn money. But only those who master their mindset can keep it, grow it, and multiply it. Because without the right mindset, every gain will eventually be undone by fear, ego, or impatience. You don't lose money because of markets, you lose it because of reactions. Fix the mindset, and the results will fix themselves. So stop asking, how do I make more? And start asking, how do I think better? Because how you think determines how long your results last. And remember, every thought compounds, every belief compounds, every decision compounds. You are not compounding dollars, you are compounding identity. And when your identity becomes that of a disciplined, grounded, confident creator, wealth has no choice but to follow. Money may take years to grow, but mindset can transform in a single decision. The decision to no longer think like the person who struggles. Once that decision is made, every moment forward accelerates your compounding curve. Because mindset, unlike money, has no limit. It doesn't depend on markets. It depends on mastery. Wealth isn't built by luck, timing, or even the perfect investment. It's built by the person you become. Your mindset is the real compound interest quietly shaping every choice, every risk, every result. The numbers in your account will always fluctuate, but the strength of your thinking determines whether they grow or disappear. Master your beliefs, control your emotions, and trust your process. Because once your mindset compounds, money simply follows. The real return is not financial. It's internal power that never stops growing.